You're listening to Beat Autoimmune and Thrive, the podcast all about reversing and preventing autoimmune conditions so you can live your most vibrant life as soon as possible. We talk about autoimmune root causes, actionable solutions, and inspirational healing stories. I'm Palmer Kippola, and I used to have MS. Today, I'm an author, a speaker, a functional medicine certified health coach, a pickleball player, and nature lover who's helped thousands of people reclaim their health and their best lives. Let's dive into this episode. I am delighted to be joined today by licensed naturopathic physician, Dr. Jenny Tufenkian. Dr. Jenny has over 20 years of experience helping health-conscious professionals recover from long COVID and ME/CFS-related fatigue. After overcoming chronic fatigue herself twice, she developed a powerful root cause approach that combines functional medicine and subconscious healing to restore energy and vitality. Her signature system addresses 5 key root causes of fatigue alongside foundational lifestyle shifts that support the body, mind, and spirit. She lives in Portland, Oregon with her husband and 2 children and loves spending time outdoors and in the kitchen. And I also have to add that she ran a wonderful summit that I'll have her talk about a little bit on chronic fatigue that is still available if you go to her website, and I'll put all of that information in the show notes. I'm so glad Dr. Jenny is here to share her story and to give us all strategies and hope for healing from these chronic debilitating conditions. Welcome, Dr. Jenny.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just a pleasure to be here.
I am so happy. And so I usually like to start with story, but today I want to start with just some definitions so that we can all get clear on what we're talking about, because there's a lot of different types of fatigue. We've got chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, and how is that different from or similar to long COVID? Maybe you can help us with that.
Sure, absolutely. So, and I'd have to say there's a lot of crossover with what we're going to talk about today and all of the autoimmune conditions, because I can't think of an autoimmune condition where on the list of symptoms isn't also fatigue and brain fog. I just can't think of one, right? That at some point in the journey that's there. And so whether you've had the label of chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis, or long COVID put on you, those of you who are listening to this, I think everything we're talking about today may apply. There may be some pieces in here that apply to you, even if you haven't had the label. So speaking of labels, to answer your question, myalgic encephalitis chronic fatigue syndrome is the name that we used to call this syndrome of people who would complain about being tired and nothing, and all of their tests were normal. And this has been something that we've seen throughout medical history for a very long time. And this condition has the worst name ever. Chronic fatigue syndrome is like the worst name. People got gaslighted and ignored. And I mean, honestly, I think it's because you show up at your doctor's office and you're like, I'm tired. And they're like, look, check your labs. You're not anemic. You don't look like you have cancer. They can't find a positive mono on you. And they say, your labs are all normal. And you're like, but I'm really tired. And they're looking, they're like, kid, are you kidding? You want to talk about tired? Like, in their head, they're going, I'm pulling a 20-hour shift here. Like, I got pulled out an emergency call. Don't talk to me out tired. And then you say, well, but I'm still tired. And they're like, okay, you know what? Why don't you just go down the hall to psych? I think you're stressed out. Maybe you're depressed. I can't help you. And this name is terrible for that. That's chronic fatigue syndrome. We're now, the rest of the world call it myalgic encephalitis, and that is a much better term for it. It means inflammation of the brain and the body. And we know that's what's happening now from the scientific testing that's happening. And there's a move in the United States to start calling this condition the same thing as the rest of the world, which is myalgic encephalitis or myalgic encephalomyelitis, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But it really means that inflammation of the brain and the muscles. And then in terms of what is long COVID is a type of myalgic encephalitis. You have inflammation of the brain and the muscles. And the straw that broke the camel's back in people that have long COVID that kicked them into this type of myalgic encephalitis was the infection or the vaccination of SARS-CoV-2 virus. And it's just it's the thing that flipped you over. There was a setup that made that person vulnerable to getting long COVID beforehand, just like there's a setup to getting you vulnerable to having an autoimmune condition be turned on or off. And there's something to be turned on. And this was the thing. There was a setup, and then they got the infection, and then that flipped their body into this dysregulated state where they've got this chronic, all kinds of things happening, which we can talk about. So.
Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful description. And my understanding is that now long COVID is considered an autoimmune disorder.
I don't know if there's
You don't know?
complete agreement on that. That's definitely something that is being discussed, and there's certainly validity with that because there's so much autoimmune stuff happening in the body with this condition. Yet we're seeing, there's so many papers on long COVID. I
Right.
know you spend 6 hours in PubMed a day. I mean, if we looked over here, we'd see this stack of research papers, plus the ones that, are all pinned everywhere. So there's a lot of discussion out there, and somebody could call it that, but I don't know if there's, everybody's in agreement. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And just for clarification, that 6 hours was in my time of deep research after I healed before deciding to become a functional medicine health coach, because it just didn't make any sense to me that 6 neurologists had told me there's nothing you can do for the MS except take medication. You're going to be in a wheelchair. And if you don't take medication, the last neurologist threatened me that my life would be shortened. So that's when I said, we're going to go a different direction and start studying. So that's when that time in PubMed was a really big part of my life. But thank you for that. And my understanding also is that so many more diseases like heart disease and even Alzheimer's and perhaps this long COVID have components that are autoimmune in nature. It's just things get revved up and don't get turned
Exactly.
off.
Exactly, and that's what's happening for sure, and I'd say one of the big things that we're really seeing now that there is so much more consensus. You mentioned I put on the summit a while ago, and one of the things that I came away with that was so fascinating to me because it was how much kind of agreement there is in terms of what's happening inside the brain in these conditions.
Mm.
Because like you, I was diving deep into the literature, in 2013, 2014, 2015, and there was so much arguing around what causes chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis. Everybody wanted to say, oh, it's all Epstein-Barr virus, it's all Parvo B virus, it's all mind-body, it's all this, it's all that. And my approach was when I was studying, I was like, no, this doesn't make sense. What I'm seeing in clinic is multifactorial. Now we agree it's multifactorial, but there's even more consensus when we start looking at this brain inflammation piece. And that
Mm.
is basically when you have this low grade inflammation in the brain, it causes this fatigue, the brain fog, and it throws off so many other systems in the body. And that's where we see this autoimmune-like behavior happening because you start seeing your own immune system attacking your own cells just because they're
Right.
inflamed.
Right. And it's a setup for other autoimmune disorders. So this
Right.
is why it's so important to address it as early as possible in this equation, right?
Right. And I'd say and the other line that I draw, which is an intense one, and it can be hard for people to hear, and if this is a lot for you, take a breath. But there's also a line between this brain inflammation, the brain fog, and the fatigue. It's the same thing that is going on in the brain with depression and anxiety and all those things. It's also the same thing that's happening with the dementias, which is why you're seeing Alzheimer's as being this autoimmune thing. That's what's happening. And so for those of us in these whose bodies have a tendency to go in these conditions or have gone in these conditions or we're in there now, it's really imperative to start working on it because we do have the body can heal. The body's amazing ability to heal and get back into balance. But we have to trigger what your individual body needs to trigger that healing response so that you can get back into balance. So
I love that, and it's a cautionary tale because if we don't address it now,
Yeah.
we also have the vulnerability
Mhm.
to go down a bad pathway again, and you have that as part of your story, what I wanna get to in a moment here, but you mentioned some symptoms about, what people might be experiencing. Can you just touch on some of the most common symptoms that and I know they're common amongst many different conditions, but I want people to be able to listen to this or watch this and say, "Oh my god, I need to listen to this because I've got that."
Mhm. Yeah, so we'll talk about fatigue. So fatigue, my clients and patients can talk about fatigue like like sommeliers talk about fine wine, it's like that wine, like there's all different kinds of tired.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think people often think, oh, I don't have chronic fatigue or long COVID because I'm not tired all the time. You can have energy that waxes and wanes in the day. So maybe you wake up and you have full of energy and then you crash by lunchtime and you're kind of dragging through the rest of your day. Or maybe you drag all day and you've got this peak from 6 p.m. to midnight and you get all this stuff done, you get all your emails done. Or it may be that you're good for a couple weeks or days, but then there's something that happens where you get what one of my people calls a brownout or
Mhm.
where you just kind of like, well, like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what I ate. I don't know what air I breathed. I don't know what happened, but something happened and now I'm canceling everything that's on my list to do because I just can't do it anymore. So fatigue is the most common thing. Fatigue that's not explained by something else is the technical thing that needs to be ticked off to go in the category of getting this label.
Yeah.
The diagnosis. The second thing is something called post-exertional malaise, where you do more than you usually do and you pay for it. This can be for some people, it's like one of my patients when she first came in, if she did the dishes and the laundry, her fibromyalgia flared and she was on the couch for 2 weeks. Another example is I had a trainer who I said, "How's your energy?" She said, "It's great. It's fine." "What kind of exercise do you do?" "I go for a walk 45 minutes every day." I said, "Great. What happens if you do more than that?" She's like, "Oh, I can't do that." And it's like, "Well, what happens?" She's like, "Oh, I'm exhausted for days. I can't do that." So here she had not said that she had fatigue, yet she holds herself back from doing all the exercise that she even trains other people to do because she's gonna pay for it. And I asked her, "How many days does it take for you to recover?" And she said 3. And for me, that's a bing, 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 because if you think about, for those of you who might know some about the mitochondria is the powerhouse of our cells in our cells, and it takes 72 hours for that to totally reset if it's not functioning well. And so that was a perfect little clincher.
Oh, that is such a gem.
Yeah.
What about brain fog?
Brain fog is huge. You don't have to have it technically for part of the diagnosis, but some kind of neurological thing is now part of the criteria for myalgic encephalitis and chronic fatigue. But that can show up as headaches. It can show up as brain fog. It can show up as a sleep disturbance. It can show up as, all kinds of different things. So those are the technical things that you need to have to be in the category. Mm, but I would say the most common things that I see are the fatigue, the brain fog, the I energy budget. I consciously or unconsciously doing something called energy budgeting, where it's this, well, if I go to work this week, then I can't go to the gathering after work tonight where everybody's gathering to go have fun because I won't be able to show up for work tomorrow if I go to the
Mm.
gathering. Or I have to say no to my best friend's party this weekend because I just need to recuperate all weekend on the couch. Like that's what I do. And a lot of this is conscious or unconscious. I know had to do this a lot. It's like, well, if I go to my son's soccer game, you know, and I miss my nap window, like that means I'm toast for the rest of the night. Like it was just, you have to be careful.
So this is such a perfect transition to your story.
Well, Yeah.
Please start at the very beginning.
Sure. Well, I mean, as you know, and as those of you who are on this journey of your healing journey, you know that once you get into it, you start going, "Oh, maybe I had this a lot longer than I thought I did." But the time that I consciously put the label of chronic fatigue syndrome on my forehead, with a lot of resistance first, was when I was in my second year of medical school, and I had just finished my clinical boards with flying colors, decided it was time to have a second child, and ended up running to secondary infertility, where
Mm,
I had a series of miscarriages and all kinds of things. One of those miscarriages was at 17 weeks,
mm,
had a traumatic experience of hemorrhaging in my bathroom at 5 o'clock p.m. on a Friday, needing to be passing out, just rushed to the
mm,
hospital, had an emergency DNC, and came home, and something was not right in my body. My blood pressure went down to 60 over 40.
mm,
And I literally crawled up the stairs after being in the hospital. They sent me home because my medical coverage didn't really cover me being there, and so they sent me home. And, without spending the night, crawled up the stairs, went into bed, and stayed there for months. And it threw me into what I call a dark night of the soul, where, we have this physical body, this mental, emotionless energy body. We have all 3 of these bodies. This has now been proven in science. It's not even woo-woo anymore. And when you're really down, we sometimes 1 or 2 times in your life, you might go through a period where all 3 are down. And this
mm,
is quite a thing for those of you who talk about soul journeys, and that this is can be quite an opportunity for a lot of expansion and growth, but oh my god, is it hard to go through. Like, you never wanna I mean, you don't wish it on anyone. This is one of those for me. It was a dark night of the soul time. I I had a lot of past trauma to process, and I didn't realize it, and that's what happened while I was in bed. But I was
mm,
so sick, I had to be walked to the bathroom. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I had severe anxiety, I had suicidal ideation, I couldn't handle the energy of anybody else in the room with me. Like, I really lost it. Like, in another time as a woman, I would have been locked up somewhere. I mean, it was bad. And I was very blessed to have all these people come and help take care of me who, my fellow students came and took care of my family. My teacher sat by my bedside and tried to help me. And I had an incredible breakthrough moment with a hypnotherapist that came and worked with me twice a week, and we did subconscious work. And
mm,
that's when I realized the power of the mind. 5% of our brain is conscious thought, the rest is subconscious, and there's so much in there. There's generational stuff in there, there's your early childhood stuff in there. It's all in there. And if it doesn't get looked at some point, it can become part of what pulls your body down and throws your body off. And that's what happened to me at that time. And it really made me I had to learn how to have the world turn without me, and as somebody who was always super I held it together for everybody, and, here I was, I couldn't do a thing. I had to learn how to just be, and that was the body slam the universe gave me, was that lesson on just being.
yeah.
And that's what came out of there. So I got out of that situation where I would move from what I call the bed to the couch after a couple of months, which is actually very fast. It probably would have been years if I hadn't had that help, and I'm so grateful, which is why I always say to people who are in these situations, it's easy to think that you're beyond help. Nobody can help you. I easily could have told myself that story. But instead, I got the help, and it was that person. It was trying lots of different people until the person that really could get me where I needed to go at that moment, I found that person. So I just encourage you to never give up looking for help. Um, I moved to the couch. I wasn't depressed. I didn't have anxiety. I was tired. And I had to take a whole year out of school and end up being diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, which I didn't want that label. I didn't want to identify. It was a yuppie flu back in the 90s. And I realized I needed to figure out what it was. So I really started to throw everything I had at it. As a student, I ended up going back to school, finishing, got into my residency, was still really tired. Walking down the hall with my residency, head of our residency program, she's like, "Yeah, I plan to live till 112 and da 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 da." And I was like, I was in my early 30s. And I was like, why would you want to live to 112? I already feel like I'm 92 in this body. Like, walking down the hall with you was hard. I'm like, and, um, but it was actually quite soon after that that I had this massive breakthrough where I'd been doing all of these things, all of this work. And then I got dental coverage halfway through my residency program. My dental insurance kicked in and I got all 20 of my mercury amalgams out. I spent 2 months detoxing from that, and it was like night and day for me. And so all that baseline stuff that I'd been putting in the bucket, all that time, when I got the metal out, my body went, yes, thank you, Jenny. Now we're free to fly. And I went from I went to 150% full resolution, did not have to energy budget, didn't worry about a thing, got super fit, working out, opened up clinics, had another kid, full life, big wave surfing, I call it, when you're doing all the things all the time. Didn't think I'd ever get chronic fatigue again. And then, it was many years, like 10 years later, many perimenopause, an injury, a knee injury playing soccer with my son, really bad, and then kept working out and got frozen shoulder and, ended up not being able to sleep because of the pain, severe pain. And that threw me into chronic fatigue relapse so quickly that I learned a very important thing about the vulnerability to relapse. It's like once your body knows that program, it can go down. I didn't know that before. I thought I was
Mm.
invincible. I thought I'd never get it again. And so it's made me aware of that, which is one of the things I tell my patients when they first come in, not as a way of being afraid, opposite of that, be empowered, figure out which tools your body needs, figure out what's causing your illness, your dysfunction, your dysregulation, so that you have those tools should you become at risk for relapse.
Yeah.
So I was like, the first time I went to bed, the second time I had responsibility to take care of my family. I was the sole breadwinner at that time I had this clinic. I had, people all these lives were dependent on me to keep functioning. And so I didn't have a choice. I kept going and I was really, really, really sick, but I kept going. And I was like you, I couldn't sleep because of the pain. So I just get up and I'd like, what is chronic fatigue? What is this? PubMed, like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was me and PubMed till I went to work. And what was amazing was that all of these patients started to come to my clinic in droves, and I didn't even know it, but I was just backed out. I got backed out 5 months. They all had chronic fatigue. And it was like this gift from the universe and I began to understand that there were these different patterns, things I was researching, stuff I was trialing on myself. I got to then trial on these different people who were coming in, and these 5 different patterns became really evident to me. And I was still on my journey, trying the different things, and I had some breakthrough moments with stuff. And I'd be like, oh, does this work for everybody? No, it didn't. It worked for some. Great. What does that mean? Okay, that means that I need to look for the people it does. Great. They've got a bridge. They can now keep working on their other root causes. For the people that it didn't work, it means we need to look at this other thing. And I started to figure this stuff out, and it was really great to watch all these people beginning to get more empowered, get their energy get back to their lives. So yeah, that was been my journey. And then when the pandemic hit, I anticipated we are going to have a second wave of chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis, and that's indeed what's called long COVID. I ended up getting it as well because I had a setup where I had incredible stress, like immense crazy thing happens to me, like to everybody during that period of time. And I also had my microbiome was a mess because of a gastrointestinal acute illness that I was in while I got exposed to COVID. And I ended up tanking from that, which made it very interesting for me to understand the nuance between myalgic encephalitis and just like if you have Lyme disease, Lyme has its own personality. COVID has its own personality. So there are some things that are unique to people that have long COVID because of just the way the virus interacts with the body. So.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So you have to touch briefly on what that difference is so that people might be able to distinguish in their minds. Like the
Yeah.
long COVID, what felt different to you from regular old ME?
Yeah. Yeah. Regular old ME. So what felt different about long COVID was a couple things for me. And I would say that the COVID virus attacks people in different ways. And we now kind of have patterns of more likely places where people will be impacted. So the virus can go in and impact the vascular system where you get these microclots, so not enough oxygen to the brain or damage in vascular systems, the cardiac system or something like that. There's some people, especially the early on people, might have had end organ damage from,
Mm.
lung or liver or drugs they were given or, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot more lung impact on those first folks. But I'll tell you, and then there are other pieces I'll tell you, which is part of my story. So I I got the COVID virus, felt like my body was responding really well, really healthy immune response, fever, cough, productive cough, 7 days. I'm like, this is great. I'm just going to clear this thing.
Boom.
Start feeling better. Woke up on day 9 and was like, uh-oh. And from having chronic fatigue before, and studying all the 5 root causes that I did, I was like, I felt like the Death Star had gone down and it had shot out a million drones and they all landed in my mitochondria. All of a sudden, overnight, I did not have energy to move my body. It was tiring to walk down the stairs. I'd made a cabbage salad the day before. I didn't have energy to chew it. I'm like, I need soup. Like, I was like, it was so bizarre. I had been kayaking and hiking and traveling right before then, just like full energy. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, kabam. Whereas I think all my entries to ME had been more gradual. This was
Yeah.
like a bulk. And it was interesting because so many athletes had gotten long COVID because they had felt like they were better, and then they went out and overdid things, and I think they really trashed their mitochondria.
Yeah.
There was this burning in my body that felt like I wanted to move, and I could understand if I was an athlete where I'd feel like I'm just gonna run this one out, I'm gonna sweat this one out. It felt like that. It was bizarre. And so that was one thing. And so we know the mitochondria really mess with the long COVID it messes with your mitochondria.
Yeah.
So a lot of the symptoms are mitochondrial dysfunction, and I
Mhm.
think that's more dominant in the long COVID picture than I saw with all the other ME/CFS. Some of them were mitochondria dominant, but not all. And so that's where I'd say there's much more of that with it. The other thing about, long COVID that's different, it's more like Lyme in the sense that you feel like you're going in this direction, and then all of a sudden there's a sharp left. Or you're going and it just does this unexpected thing, and a lot of time people feel like, "Oh, I'm getting better, I'm coming out. Oh, this is great, I'm undone," and then you're not, and that's different than ME/CFS, which is a little bit more like, it's just a little these are subtle differences. Again, I'm
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm a
yeah, yeah.
sommelier of tired. I'm a
You are
professional
doing a
sommelier of tired.
brilliant job. I mean, these are brilliant distinctions. I love it, and I wanna make sure that we have time to delve into your 5 root causes because
Sure.
I think, you mentioned the mitochondria. We must dig into that. But please, in any direction you wanna talk, I know everybody's root causes are different,
Yeah.
but these are the big 5 that you
Yeah.
typically see.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say one other thing because it does relate to the 5. Well, I'll go through the 5 and I'll weave it in there, which is the 5 root cause. I talk about there's 5 health foundations, so you have to have the health foundations in place for your body to get back to a place of balance. So I don't think we'll have time to talk about those, but I just wanna say that don't think that you can just go out and take a remedy and that's gonna take care of your health. Like the sleep, the digestion, the mindset, the connection with yourself and others. Like, this is really where medicine is at. That's really what it's about. And so I just wanna honor that even though we're not gonna talk about that today, maybe
Yeah.
next time.
I we
Um,
we may need we absolutely may need a part 2. I
yeah,
mean, and then
yeah,
as a health
yeah,
coach,
yeah.
those are the foundations that I really focus on, right? I mean, it's
Like,
like when we work in collaboration with a brilliant naturopathic doctor,
yeah,
the tip of the iceberg really is the treatment protocol in terms of what supplements and what medications or herbs or homeopathic remedies are you on.
yeah.
You can get that down and put it on a schedule, order those things and start taking them, but how do you live?
Exactly, exactly. It's so important to look at that, and that's one of the other things that came out of this summit was so many people talking about the importance of this lifestyle medicine. And I would say it's not sexy, but it's so important. It's so easy to override it and say it's too basic. It's too easy. That can't be the thing that's going to help me, but it is. So that aside, assuming that we're talking about that as well, then we talk about the 5 root causes. And the first one is what I call the gateway root cause, where it's that hormone triangle, and it's how that adrenal gland, the thyroid gland, and the ovary for female and male for testes, how that triangle works together, and it works together as a symphony. And if one is out of tune, the other one tries to match it, and they all can all get out of tune really easily. So when we talk about my story of my both times actually, my gateway in was my adrenal glands, my hypothalamic pituitary axis being stressed out. I had a kid. I went to medical school when he was 3. I decided to become a doctor when I was pregnant with him. It's like single and pregnant, decided to become a doctor. Like, who does that? And and so, stress was a little bit high
Yeah.
and was a total setup for this. So that was one of the main things I had to heal for me to heal that second time. So this is so many of us are on the stress express, that 24/7 expectation. I think it's just getting worse and worse as time goes on. And we really have to step in to work on that, all of us consciously, to stay more balanced. So that's the first gateway. The second one is looking at chronic infections. So we are carrying so many other things with us all the time. We have a virome, which is a viral pool of viruses. Some of them we have names for, some we don't. And they hang out. And they're extremely opportunistic. If you're feeling stressed out, if you're sick from something else, they love to come up and party and take over your cells and suck your energy literally out of your mitochondria. And they make you really tired. And there's a certain feeling that people get when it's viral where you can have really heavy limbs in your body, like just feels like you're walking through cement. One of my patients was like, I feel like I'm walking through molasses when I cross the parking lot. It's one of the ways I know my EBV might be reactivating is this like, the idea of going out and playing Frisbee sounds like too exhausting to me. Like the idea of walking across the house feels too tiring. When I got the COVID, one of the other things is because it's a virus, the viruses love fat and they love to live in the nerves. The SARS-CoV-2 virus felt like it really attacked my vagus nerve and created
Mm.
this. It felt like a vibration. I keep doing this. It was like in my body, like all the time, like, and I knew that this could impact my brain in a really weird way. So I'll talk about more in a minute. So one of the things about viruses is they can throw off really weird symptoms, stuff people don't want to share around. I get these weird rotating pains, or I get these sharp nerve-like things that come and go, or I get this crawling sensation like I need to itch, and I'm afraid they're going to think I'm crazy. I look and there's nothing there. So I don't tell my doctor, but that could be a nerve, that could be a reactivated virus. You can have reactivated, fungal things, bacteria. It could be any kind of infection. So that's a second. The third one is looking at toxins. So mycotoxins from mold, heavy metals, glyphosates, all the stuff that we're exposed to all the time. Not everybody gets sick from it, but it is hard on your body. And so those of us who get to a certain point where the level or our genetics or something gets turned on and it becomes overload for the system. And then the fourth is looking at the beautiful mitochondria, which I love, and they are where our energy is created in our body. They also do lots of other cell signaling, and they're part of this whole cycle of what happens in the body around fatigue and myalgic encephalitis and brain inflammation. They are very, very vulnerable, and there's a lot of cross-reaction between some of these root causes. Those mitochondria will not function as well if there's viruses in them. They won't function as well if you're reacting to mold. They won't function as well if there are heavy metals in your body. So that mitochondrial piece is really important to look at and to see if that's significant for you or not. And if it is, there's specific things you can do to address your mitochondria. And then the fifth is looking at that limbic emotional brain and how that connects with everything. So your limbic brain it's in the subconscious part of your mind. It's a series of different parts of your brain that are all combined, and we call that the limbic brain. We now know it's connected with the amygdala, that the amygdala is part of that, and the insula are also part of this whole system. So the amygdala insula is also another term you could talk about for this. It's connected to this vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in your body. It's the only nerve that leaves your brain. And it's vagus for vagabond, for wandering. And it goes down and it connects with every single organ in your body. And there's this communication system that goes both ways, where there's information from your brain, your subconscious mind, where you've got all that stuff that we talked about earlier, that goes down to your body, and it's telling your body, oh, gee, what's life like? How safe are we? Are we safe or are we not safe? Are we safe or are we not safe? If you have a lot of junk in there telling you you're not safe, you're going to be more on the not safe side. That's what happened to me. And you can work on your brain so that you're looking more at safety and so your body feels more safe. And then you have the information coming up too. If you've got dysbiosis, if you've got irritable bowel syndrome, which there's a lot of people with myalgic encephalitis who also have IB, irritable bowel stuff. If you've got mast cell activation syndrome, which is when your mast cells are on hyper alert everywhere in this intersection between your nerves and your blood, then they're sending the signal like, we are not safe. We're not safe. We're so on fire. We're not safe. And they're sending that information up to your brain. And what happens is, if your brain decides that it takes all this data and it makes a decision that we are not safe, it wants to protect you. That brain, in all of its wisdom, can only do so much, because it's not the frontal lobe. What it can do is it can amplify and alter the signals that you're getting in your body, and it can change your experience of pain. It can alter your sense of smell. It can make you think different things. And what it does is it amplifies pain, and it amplifies fatigue, and it will create more socially isolating things like interleukin-1 and interleukin-6. So you go hide in your cave. It says, I don't know what's going on out there, Jenny. I don't know what's going on. But all I can tell you is it's not safe, and I want you to live. So I'm going to tell you to go hide in your cave. Just go hide in your cave. I'm going to increase your pain, your fatigue. I'm not going to want to make you have you talk to anybody. Just go away. And that's what it's doing. That's your limbic brain. And so your immune system gets altered. Your detox pathways get altered. Your hormonal system gets altered. And so then it becomes really hard for your body to get rid of those infections, to dump the toxins that it should be doing every day.
Wow. So beautifully explained. And I can feel and resonate with each one of those things. I mean, they are all profoundly evident in so many people. And I can just see people raising their hand like, I check all 5 boxes. There's no doubt. And so how do you even start? We don't have time to dig into everything and solve all the world's problems here, but I would love some practical ideas for people besides reaching out and talking with you and becoming a patient, and certainly getting the guidance they need to address those infections and toxins and limbic system retraining and rewiring, which is really hard. All of this stuff is hard to do on your own. I
Yeah.
get it. I tried this for 26 years.
Yeah.
So help us with how do you get started going about the healing
I think the
process?
first thing I think the first thing is really important, because you're not told this everywhere else, and I just really want this to land, and I want this to be the thing that we start sharing that as being truth, is that these conditions, your body can return back to balance from these conditions, because you're told that from the conventional medical world, that we don't have a treatment for this, that there's nothing you can do, you got to get used to it. And I don't see that as truth. That's not truth for me. That's not what I see. And that's not the truth I hear with other people who work with people the way I do. So I just want to say that. Because I think that as a frame allows you to know that becomes an inquiry of what do you need to do next. And I'm trying to think about how to answer this with the time we have that will be the most powerful for everybody that's listening to this right now. Um, part of part of part of the thing with this is to know that not everyone is the same who has these conditions. And so Sally might need us to actually work on getting her Epstein-Barr virus levels down. And so it would be good for her to go in and get her Epstein-Barr virus reactivation test done to see if that's elevated. And somebody else might just really need to work on their detox pathways in their mitochondria. Somebody else might really need to work on the mast cell activation. Somebody else might need to really work on their limbic brain first. So I think the thing for you to do, is to begin to know, I'd say the first thing really is to get those health foundations in check, and so it's like start working on the things that that help you and to avoid the things that don't. So,
Yeah.
like eating the foods that are better for your body, getting the good amount of sleep, and not getting into a place of frustration or, you know, hopelessness that drives you to doing behaviors that aren't great for your body. So I think that's one thing I would say for sure. I think the second is really finding somebody who's willing to be your advocate and work with you on this. I
Mhm.
don't None of us are the gurus with the magic wand. We're the guides, and there's a lot of people out there who are beginning to understand the complexity of this condition and are willing to work with you, are willing to listen to you. And so I think it's really finding that person that's a right match for you and being open to that and keep knocking on doors until you find the one that opens and feels right, and know that you're going to be there for a while, and then you might move on to working with somebody else, or you may end up needing a team. A lot of the people I work with, they have multiple practitioners, and I'm one of the team players on there, which is great. For some of the people that are really sick, that's what's needed, and that's how we're able to get them to return to their lives.
I love it. I love it, and I just had a brainstorm.
Mhm.
Why don't we, in this time, use one of your patients or a case study
Sure.
that, represents, because everybody's gonna have a different experience, but somebody that came to you with debilitating fatigue and other things, and who went on this journey with you, whether it was 6 months, a year, whatever framework and time frame it took.
Mhm.
Does somebody come to mind?
Yeah, there's 2 that come to mind. Uh, um, so one, I'll see if I can talk about both of them if we have time, but if not. So one of them is this, young woman. She was in her I think she's in her late early 30s. Uh, many she was already on disability. She has SSDI, which is hard to get, so she's on disability. I think she was in a wheelchair when I first talked to her. She wasn't confined to that all the time. She had a very long list of POTS, dysautonomia. She'd had many traumatic brain injuries. She had, chronic fatigue syndrome. She'd had long COVID, and she was really sick. She can't work. She's needs to have people help take care of her. She also, has other things. And she been working with a team of doctors and had been treated for a lot of things, and just was seeing some improvement, but not a ton. And so we ended up working together for a year. And I was able to work in coordination with her practitioners, which was great. When I first started working with her, she didn't have the brain. I realized it was actually quite challenging for me at first. I have to work harder with some of my patients, and because
Yeah.
it was hard for her to even stay focused in our conversations, let
Mm.
alone get the lab test done to see if her viruses had reactivated. It took her 6 months to get that test done. There were other tests that we did, and this was with help. And so very soon I realized we had to do things not the way I usually do them. We had to do it in a different way with her. And so I really went very basic with her, and we went back to I knew that I figured she had blood sugar dysregulation, her digestion was off, and she was having a hard time managing her food. She also has some ADHD, maybe slightly on the autistic spectrum. And so lots of things going on that made some of this challenging. So we ended up just really working on her gut and on her food. And I brought in one of the coaches I'm working with to meet with her every week so that we could just stay on track. And this is where you get to understand the power of the little things.
Yeah.
Like here's this list of all these really complicated conditions, really
Right.
complicated. And I'm like, okay, while we're waiting for all this lab testing to come and while we're doing all this other stuff, we're going to focus on this one thing. What's the one thing that I think that if we put our energy there, it's going to make the biggest move? I could have chosen sleep. I'm choosing digestion. It's her immune system. It's her neurotransmitters. It's so much, all that nerve, that vagus nerve down there. So
Yeah.
we worked on that. And then we were able to get back. Sure enough, her Epstein-Barr virus is elevated. Another virus was elevated. Sure enough, we started finding things, started addressing those and treating those, and she was following through. We had a follow-up a year later. She loves her animals. She loves her garden. She loves her herbs that she grows. She's always had to have other people come in and deliver her dirt. She had lifted, I cannot remember, she had lifted hundreds of pounds of dog food. She had done all of her gardening that year. She didn't need to hire
Mm.
anybody out to do her gardening. She was doing it full time. She we're now having conversations about, she's like, I think I want to have a kid. And she's not ready yet, but that's the conversation. And we're starting to talk about what would that part-time job be. It's like we don't think she's going full-time back to corporate, but she's definitely, I mean, I see her as a possibility if she chose to,
Yeah.
of being able to find that part-time work that meant something to her that she could now fit in. But one of the things that was so significant to me was that first conversation to the end was that dramatic, she was there with me the whole 45-minute
Mhm.
appointment, tracking, we're conversing, we're back and forth, like, she was there in her brain and in her body, and it was just, I mean, I just feel it in my body. I mean, it's just like, it's so cool, and we'll see what happens next. So that's one that comes to mind because she would have been somebody that I think gets written off,
Yeah.
as being too far gone, as not being possible, as just you just gotta get used to it kinda thing, and that's not true. Um, and again, we'll see what else does. So, but she's riding her bike. She rides her bike 3 miles, can ride a bike 3 miles without having, post-exertional malaise crash. I mean, like, this is a big difference in 12 months. We'll take it.
This is huge. This is huge. And Dr. Jenny, this is so hopeful. I mean, I hope everybody listening and watching this is just getting that this is so powerful and
Yeah,
empowering.
yeah,
I mean, those foundational health habits,
yeah,
people take this with them. This is what I love learning.
exactly,
I love so much in the work that we do is
exactly,
empowering people to have this toolkit for life that
exactly,
you now know how to sleep and you
exactly.
know how to listen to your body. You know how to sleep. You know how to choose your food. And if you slip back into one of those patterns, you know how to get out of it a lot more easily.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I totally agree. It's the exact same words I use all the time. Empower your own toolkit in hand, which is when you come up to something that's, life happens,
Yeah.
you have a stressor, dear one dies, or something happens.
Yeah.
It's your body's more vulnerable at that time, but if you know what got you out to begin with, you've got that toolkit. You can go back and take those herbs again, or go back to that other diet, or whatever the things were, and empower yourself. So then you've got that resilience to handle the grief process as you're grieving your loved one, as you should. So
Oh, so beautiful. And in this last moment of our time together, I have a feeling this will be the first of maybe more conversations.
I think so
Um,
too.
so, what's one thing, if you had a piece of advice for somebody who's feeling deeply exhausted and hopeless,
Yeah.
they're unsure if healing is even possible for them, what would you say to that
Yeah.
person?
I think the most powerful thing you can do is do what I call presencing. Find something that brings you into the present moment so you're just here now. Because what we're understanding is how much that autonomic nervous system gets dysregulated in these conditions, and it stays in this stress reaction when you're in that dysregulated state. And so anything we can do to get into a state of calm. So what I mean by that, so whatever that is for you, like for some of us it's easy, and so for some it's more challenging. For me, I can go outside and just be next to a tree and start being with a tree, and it brings me into the moment. Art is an incredible, like, why people love doodling and color books is because we start getting into this other part of our brain that's not analyzing, it's not thinking about, the past and the future. It's just like, "Oh, pink or blue? What color do I want here? Oh, look at this pattern," and your brain is on, and so you're present, you're now. For other people, it's music. It's listening to music or dancing or something like that. So what is it? These are tools to put in your toolkit. This is something for you to think about. What is it that when I do this, it brings me into the moment, into a place where I feel calm or joy, and start doing that throughout the day. Like, build up that toolkit and start doing that just for a few seconds, or if you can, for 90 seconds. Literally, you'll start rewiring your brain towards a place of more vitality, health, and power, and you'll get your body to start flipping over into that healing response.
I love this so much, Dr. Jenny. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your powerful holistic approach for healing chronic fatigue and long COVID. I know in my heart that so many people listening today will feel seen, validated, and most importantly, hopeful. And if you're somebody who's been struggling with deep exhaustion, brain fog, or just feeling like you're not yourself anymore and you don't know if life is ever going to be the same again, I hope this conversation reminds you that real healing is possible when you address the true root causes and support your body, mind, body, and spirit in this process. And I'm going to include all of Dr. Jenny's information about her work and where you can find her in the show notes. And I'm just so grateful for everybody who has tuned in and stayed connected with us through this powerful conversation. So, Dr. Jenny, thank you so much for being with me today. It's been just a joy and an honor to have you. I am just excited to call you a friend and to be on this path with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our future conversations. And thank you, everyone here, for listening. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I wish you the absolute most best healing.
Until then, thank you, my friend. Be well.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and if you feel inspired, please leave a quick review so other people can find it too. Now, if you want to beat autoimmune and thrive, make sure you sign up for my free video training at freeautoimmunetraining.com. That's freeautoimmunetraining.com, and watch the first video right away. Take good care. Bye for now.